7.7 Music for Life. Thank you so much for joining us. My co-host Sharmain, Baboolal, and I are very happy that you take the time to join us for what we call an opportunity to have discussion on the issues that affect us all. And it's the reason we call it Brunch. All those who are participating with us via the telephones, we truly appreciate it, as we will ask you to again join us with all our guests this morning. Right now, phase 2 is where we head to.
And that's another, the fact that we're in Woodbrook doesn't mean that we're going to Hamilton Holder Street at the phase 2 Paniadio. Phase 2 on the Brunch, and technically there is a window of 8 weeks within which the Prime Minister can call an election date, and I stand corrected because we have the Chief here. Given that the term of office of the People's Partnership Government ends on May 24th, Parliament will be prorogued by June, should be, and elections are due in September by the latest. The numbers will be different given that the EBC draft order laid in Parliament has recommended changes to 10 constituencies which involved a shift in polling divisions. Our guest this morning on our second installment of Brunch at 1077 is the Chief Elections Officer, Mr. Ramesh Nanan, who arrived at his position, Mr. Bishop, after 27 years of service with the EBC. Good morning, Mr. Nanan.
Well, good morning to you and good morning to your listeners.
One of the first areas, thank you so much for being here, for our listeners, is to understand the importance of the Election and Boundaries Commission. It was formed for bringing two separate entities together, Election and the Boundaries Commission. They came together, and we have the EBC. But a lot of folks are in ignorance as to what, except on election night or leading up to it when boundaries are drawn, you fulfill an additional function to that. Explain to our listeners, please.
Well, contrary to popular belief, the election doesn't go to sleep after an election. It's, as my chairman would say, it's not a piece of machinery, and after an election you cover it with a tarpaulin and then you remove the tarpaulin at the election time and put some CRC and turn some screws. It's important independent institution established under Section 71 of the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. You were correct in your in the preamble, during which you indicated that the Elections and Boundaries Commission came together as a result of the Republican Constitution in 1976. Those prior to that, there were two separate commissions. Primarily, the Elections and Boundaries Commission is responsible for the delimitation of boundaries, the conduct of elections, as well as the registration of those who are qualified to be registered as electors.
Okay, and while we're going to that now, before we looking straight at 2015, yeah? Last thing you said qualified to be electors. What our voters list looks like now? What are the figures if you have them?
It's at 9th of April, 1,096,913.
So we have 1 million people eligible to vote?
Yes, approximately 1,096,000.
So is this the first election that we are crossing the million mark, or did that happen?
No, it happened before the 2013 local government
elections. Okay. All right. Mr. Nanan, we want to go straight to, at least I would like to go straight to the draft EBC report. Or is it the draft EBC order? I'm seeing order when I look at Parliament, and what is the actual name of the document?
Well, it's a review of constituencies' boundaries, and that is done pursuant to Section 72 of the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago.
All right. The affected constituencies, may I add, are Cuba North, Cuba South, Diego Martin West, Diego Martin Central, Diego Martin Northeast, Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, Port of Spain South, San Fernando East and West, and Oropouche. What factors are used to address changes to the boundaries when you move around polling divisions? What do you take into consideration?
Well, ab initio, let me explain the process. The Constitution says that Tobago shall have not less than 2 constituencies. In Trinidad, and in each island as a case, we divide the electorate by the number of constituencies. That's the average. And no constituency is allowed to be above 110% of the average, neither 90% below that average. So it is essential that the Elections and Boundaries Commission, in preparation for the report, which should be submitted not less than 2, no more than 4 years after the last report was submitted. Right? And the review of the boundaries was undertaken in such a way so that each constituency would reflect what we will call equity. It is virtually impossible to have every constituency with an equal number of votes, hence the permissible between 90 and 110%. The Commission strives to get each constituency within that permissible band.
Mr. Bishop?
I am looking at something that is at the top of a lot of people's minds to understand this. The allocation, for instance, of houses. Okay, yes, that has to do with the EBC. At least a question that I think you'll be able to answer. A lot of folks are moving from one area into another area. How long does one have to live in an area before they're eligible to vote? Because that is going to address a suspicion of many people that the allocation of housing to favor a particular constituency is dependent on their ability to vote and, bring back the current party. Whether that is true or untrue, I just need to know the eligibility process from the EBC standpoint.
Well, one must be residing in an electoral district 2 months prior to the qualifying date.
Only 2 months?
Yeah. Well, let me explain that a little bit further.
Please.
Prior to any election, there's a period that is called a period of electoral registration. That is undertaken as a result of a proclamation issued by His Excellency. That is a 9-day period during which persons have the right to regularize their electoral status, or those who have not yet registered to register for the purpose of wanting to vote in the elections. The 9th day after the commencement of that period of electoral registration is the qualifying date. And once as someone who is over the age of 18, qualified to vote at the election, resides in that particular electoral district at a given address 2 months prior to that qualifying date, such a person is qualified to vote.
So in actuality, those who have their suspicions about some of this could be accurate. I'm not asking you to comment on that. I'm just saying your explanation actually buttresses the concern of a lot of people in that area, Sharmain.
Actually, one of the questions that I really had for you, and I hope it's not too early to just throw it at you, and I'm sure you can handle answering it within the confines of your absolutely objective and impartial way. How real is the threat of voter padding? Because we've had instances, you remember that elections in the 90s where people were even taken to court and were found, people who changed their addresses outside of what is now being referred to as house padding. Outside of that, how real is the threat of voter padding that people... is there a flaw in your system that you would have recognized in the 90s that has been corrected then since then?
Well, I can't comment on any flaw in the 90s. What I can say that the system is carefully thought out. It is well defined in terms of the processes involved. One cannot simply inform of a notification by virtue of signing a notification of change of address, and the EBC will act on the basis of that. Thorough field investigations are conducted to verify the identity of that person, to ensure that the person resides at a given address. Thereafter, the EBC will be responsible for assigning the polling division for that elector and ensures that that person is qualified before we can validate that transaction.
So all those processes are taking place right now as we had, or what do you do as a date is given for the elections? What kind of overdrive you all go into? What happens?
The date of the election has nothing to do with our processes. Okay. Registration is a continuing process. In our system, registration is permanent, it's personal, and it's voluntary. So that personal in the sense that if someone wants to notify of a change of address, that person has to present himself or herself to the registration officer in the area in which he moves, to the respective registration office, apply for or notify of the change of address. There's a legal form to complete, after which we would conduct our investigations to determine whether that person is duly qualified to be registered in that at that address in that electoral district.
The CEO of the Election and Boundaries Commission, Ramesh Nanan, is our guest this morning. We're talking about the role of the ECB and how it affects you. Let us put a situation where someone has moved from an area or fortunate enough to get a house and goes to a different location. But that person chooses to vote in they have not done anything. They still choose to vote in their old place of residence. What is the problem with that? Is there a problem if in fact they have moved and you got 3 months later on or 4 months later on, election date is there? Can they still go ahead and vote in their old address? Or at the old address rather?
Well, the law provides that for that person, as long as that person's name is on the list of elected, a corresponding registration record is in the unit register or binder at the polling station, that person would be qualified to vote. As I indicated before, the process is a voluntary one. The law also provides that we are not to remove the name of someone from one district unless we have notification that that person is in another district.
There's a notification from the individual.
From the individual.
In the case of a person going to their new address, for instance, new polling station, not finding their names there, it's already. For instance, if I live in Maloney, the move from Maloney to some area, let's say down in Caroni, could be a little difficult on election day. So I get to my new address, which is in Caroni, and my name is not there. What do I do? I go there to vote because I moved here 3 months ago. Is the onus on the individual to inform you, or where is the onus?
The onus is on the individual to inform the registration area into the area in which he has moved to of his change of address. And permit me to read section 11.2 of the Representation of the People's Act. Where an elector for an electoral district has ceased to reside in that electoral district, he shall not on that account cease to be qualified to be an elector for that electoral district unless he has become qualified under section 12C to be an elector for another electoral district. And I think this will bring some clarity to the question.
Appreciate that clarity, but let us say, for instance, I am in Caroni, as I said, I moved from Maloney, I was negligent, I did not inform you. I am there, my name is not on the ballot. Is there some sort of provision that I would, I can sign something, some sort of affidavit, something that, to allow me to vote at this, my new residence until it is verified? I mean, is there anything in place for that?
Absolutely nothing in place for such. Your name would have appeared at the area, the district you lived before, and that is where your records will be. And as long as your name is on the list, there's a corresponding registration record in the unit register, you'll be able to vote at that polling.
But you follow where I'm going with this, because with the amount of people being awarded houses, and I don't mean anything political in this, I merely say that people are changing addresses. You can end up with a lot of folks who are not taking their responsibility seriously enough to inform you that they have moved and they go to this new area and they would like to participate in the process.
Well, at this point I will take the opportunity to inform those persons who have moved from one area to another area and have not yet notified the respective registration officer to do so now.
The CEO is not going to give me a yard on that, Sharmain.
No, he's going to be absolutely impartial. There are two things, and I don't want to be going back on this. It's just we stuck on this voter. It's really the concerns of people out there that we're asking you to address, okay? And one of the things in the shift of polling divisions among the constituencies, when you in this draft order, is that a response from the opposition, especially in San Fernando East, there are some polling stations from San Fernando East polling divisions going to Oropouche, if that's correct, and not vice versa. But there's a shift from San Fernando to Oropouche. And what I'm going to ask you, when you're dealing with something as technical as that, what are the things that people put into consideration? That I suppose, for example, you have a village, for example, when from half of it is one constituency, the other half is another constituency. You have to move polling divisions there. What do you do? How do you inform people what polling division they now, what constituency, because of a move in polling division that they now vote in, that's that, and as well as you are supposed to make a move that is as impartial as anything, and that you're not seen to be in favor, so that if you shift 2 polling divisions from San Fernando East, it is the 2 polling divisions that would have given any particular party an advantage or a disadvantage. So it's a whole several-pronged question.
But I think I would ask you to be a little bit more specific in what you mean with respect to moving of polling divisions. Right? We don't look at voting patterns.
Good.
The ABC absolutely does not look at voting patterns in order to move polling divisions. We look at the numbers in terms of the electorate. We look at other factors, and we would always be mindful of the fact that we do not want to separate communities. We create constituencies where we have boundaries using major highways, rivers, etc.
So your criteria, you're saying, unless I misunderstood, the criteria is mainly based on the number of people.
Yes, indeed it is, and it's clear, and the guidelines are clear in the Constitution as to how the boundaries should be.
It's a numbers game.
How long does a person have to reside in Trinidad and Tobago to become eligible to vote?
Well, it depends, if it's a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago who is duly registered, and that person meets the qualifying date 2 months prior to that period of the qualifying date, the person is eligible to vote in the elections.
Bishop, that leaves us open to, okay, so there would be the category of, can someone just fly in to vote for an election? You're a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, you live abroad. There's that category, there's the returning resident, and I think what that person, we have a large immigrant population here, and there's also that talk about people. How long do you have to live? For example, people would ask you openly, a Guyanese would be living in Trinidad, and some have ID cards. How long do you have to be living in Trinidad, as an immigrant before you access that?
Well, let me answer this way, right? If it's a Guyanese living in Trinidad,
for example, Guyanese, yeah?
right, and you said that person, and you also said that person has an ID card.
Yeah.
Right? We are taking it here on the presumption that person would have obtained an ID card
Through the right person.
Following the right procedure. So that person, firstly, has to have resident status within the meaning of the Immigration Act. I think it is Section 5(1)(c) of the Immigration Act. Only upon receiving that resident status, that person would be required thereafter to apply for an not will be required, but can apply for an identification card. As long as that person, upon having that resident status, is 1 year from that date, 12 months, that person will be.
Are there particular elections that this person can vote
Can
in?
register. So once someone is registered and have that status, the person will be qualified to vote.
Across the board, no particular elections. I mean, they can vote in local elections and general elections.
Well, Guyana is part of the Commonwealth, and we register Commonwealth citizens who are duly qualified.
I see.
So registered Commonwealth citizens who are duly qualified?
Who are duly qualified.
And
that is those persons who have obtained resident status within the meaning of the Immigration Act.
Okay.
Sharmain mentioned the diaspora is wide. Lots of folks are looking at what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago, and if they just fly back here because they are registered IE in Laventille, there are no challenges made to nationals who are just returning with a local address. There are no challenges made to them. Is that correct? I mean, how does the ECB keep a track of that? And are you required to do that? Is that part of understanding, tracking the vote? Is that something that you do?
Well, we always try to maintain the accuracy of the voters list, and from time to time we conduct surveys, we obtain information, we publish the every 1st of July, publish the list of electors, and we invite persons to bring to our attention any discrepancies by which we can take appropriate action in order to maintain that accuracy of the list.
So how do you prepare for something that massive, a change that is so radical, as well as, were you preparing for it once the legislation was being debated in Parliament?
Well, first of all, I do not know precisely what the legislation involves. Right? And in any event, we have to prepare for the first vote, which is the main election. I am yet to see what the legislation is. Only upon reviewing such, then I'll be in a position to see what is expected.
But what would be a normal thing, that if this legislation, let's say it is finalized next week, and you all are expected to do these runoffs, what would be the normal procedure for you now? What would you need if you faced with all of these things?
One thing I want to assure you is that the Elections and Boundaries Commission and its department will be ready for any eventuality. We will live up to the challenges that are expected of us. Right? Of course, it will require more resources, financial, human, material. It will be over an extended period of time. Right? Any additional election, apart from the first one, will naturally result in the need for additional resources.
Okay, and therefore you asked for, and I'm seeing here in the government, the estimates of recurrent expenditure for 2015 general election year totals 164.3 million, which is 70 million more. It's from a document in Parliament. It's 70 million more than you asked for in 2013 and 2014. So if you're going to have this runoff, if the legislation becomes reality, that means you will need a lot more than $164 million?
It's quite possible. I will never know whether there will be runoff in all 41 constituencies or not.
There's always a need for more money, of course, and that opens the door for my inquiry on the participation. Democracy is as strong as the participants. Let's go to about 2001 to 2007. I mean, we're looking at a 66% voter turnout in 2001. In 2007, we're looking at 66. So it kind of stays the same place, 66.21%. The amount of spoils that you get coming out of an election is a two-part question. One is the participation is holding steady because of the informed electorate and those registering with you, or the participation is limited because of problems you had at the ECB, i.e. registrants and at the Election and Boundaries Commission. Thank you.
If I understand your question clearly, with respect to participation, the Elections and Boundaries Commission and its department always engage in voter education, and we always encourage people to participate in the process, to exercise their franchise. Yes, what you have pointed out in the fact that it's around 66, I noticed that in 2010 it was 69.88%. Yeah. THA election in 2013, it went to a high of 70.08%. The Shawona's West by-election in 2013, it was 67.66%. So through a process of voter education, civic education, and participation by, I think, encouragement by civil society group for those persons who normally not inclined to participate in the process. I think overall encouragement can increase the participation.
You're encouraged by it, but oftentimes you hear of spoiled votes or votes that were not good. What is the percentage you get of folks voting, and those votes have to be nullified, on review and that sort of thing?
I think you meant rejected.
Rejected, yes.
Right? So it's a very small percentage. I think we have a very literate electorate.
Okay.
And it minimizes the amount of rejected.
Very good to hear.
All right, Bishop, before we go, there's a limit to campaign finance that's established in your law. If you would explain to us what is that limit, You understand? And we're asking this question in light of all the calls for campaign finance reform that has never even made it to the step of Parliament yet, because it's just a promise and that. So what's the limit to campaign finance reform according to your law?
Okay. Candidates' expenditure is limited to $50,000 for parliamentary elections, $25,000 for municipal council elections and the Tobago House of Assembly election.
All right. In reality, I'm sure the average person can see that much more money than that, much more than 50,000 is spent in a constituency, right? Have you all ever had to address this issue of campaign finance? What can the EBC do, therefore, if someone breaches that and spends more than $50,000? And how do you monitor exactly? How do you monitor that? Do they have to give in receipts to say, okay, I spent $50,000 on a meeting, on a truck, on a mic? What's that?
Well, the law requires each candidate to submit a return of election expenses, and that is submitted within 42 days from the declaration of the result. Invariably, we receive returns which are within the limit.
And so the monitoring process, you say, is working fine for monitoring the contributions made to see that nobody violated the rules and so on?
Well, on the basis of our limitations, what is expected of the Elections and Boundaries Commission and its department,
That's a qualified answer. It's a very qualified answer. Within the limitations of the resources, which means there's a great possibility that folks are in fact violating, but you're...
Not necessarily the resources I refer to, in terms of what we are required to do under the legislation.
Which is?
Which is when we receive the election returns, we are required to publish after 7 days from the submission of the report. The outside limit is 42 days, and thereafter we publish. It is there for public scrutiny, and any member of the public can apply to review.
But you're the authority there to monitor it. So in the last, if I ask you, for instance, from 2000 to now, have you had any violation of campaign financing laws? If I ask you that, would you say we have had or have not had any?
We have not had any.
Because the process says someone has to report it. Someone definitely has to report it. So therefore, it comes back to us on the ground. We ought to be monitoring, because we would know that much how much people are spending in reality, compared with the figures that put forward. Gerrymandering at a different level.
Monitoring at a different level too. Asking all of the citizenry to be involved in it. CEO of the Election and Boundaries Commission, Ramesh Nanan, thank you so much for taking the time and bringing us some clarity this morning. We just truly appreciate it.